I'm Dump Truck DS. Welcome back to Mapping for Quake. This episode is part 3 of my workflow series. If you haven't seen the other two, check out the links below. You should definitely watch them before this one, and I might even have a link up here if you look really closely. This episode is just a post-mortem of the process that I went through. I showed you my workflow, and then you saw a little bit of the gameplay of the level, and I'll also have links of some gameplay videos if you're interested, or download it and play it yourself. But this is just kind of to go through things I did right, things I did wrong, things I regret, things that worked out. So without further ado, here we go. So as I understand it, a postmortem is a way for people to examine a project and see what went wrong and see what went right and what lessons you can learn. So that's what we're doing here. So general things that were observations watching people play the map. Number one thing is I changed the color of the water, the texture of the water. And this is from Arcane Dimensions, if I'm not mistaken. I just used the normal brown water to kind of go with the wizard theme. Blue wouldn't have default, blue wouldn't have looked that great. So it was too bright, and I just wanted different. So I actually took a bit of time searching for the texture that I wanted to use for the water. But that led to a specific problem.
Is this water or is it like slime? Only one way to find out, I guess.
So at least one person that played the map thought this was slime. It's not the end of the world, because eventually with the design of this map, they're gonna fall in or jump in eventually, or have to jump in or have to fall in. Kind of a minor thing, but it did come up. All right, so let's look at this first secret. This is kind of an easy one, but not too many people that I saw play it found it. There's a button here, it's shootable. And then you'll hear, if you do it, you hear a clink. And if you're moving around, you notice that these bars, I guess I should have showed you the bars. So anyway, not a lot of people got that. I figure this is kind of an easy one. You're going to be swimming around here and need to kind of breach back up onto land here. But what I probably could have done better is make this little section see-through and have it be one of the bars that lowers. Then there'd be no mistake that something had happened right in the player's view. So something to think about for, that kind of button or that kind of event. One other thing, no one criticized this, but I thought this was a little boring. I could have had this, some bars or grates in here so that you could see, oh, there's a teleporter in there, but then you wouldn't have been able to see the switch. So it would make maybe players who were up here kind of looking down and seeing that there's some kind of something inside of this room as opposed to these ugly, just stretched bricks textures. So here's some easy stuff to point out. Look at this horrible texturing here. I really should have taken the time to straighten out these textures. That was just an oversight on my part. I think I meant to go back and never did. And then I was watching somebody play and went, ooh. A lot of these rocks, I did not intend to have these goofy 90-degree angles. I meant to smooth those out. And I did make a pass and try to smooth things out. JCR liked these, but these were kind of a mistake, and I never went back and fixed them. Again, it's a speed map. I didn't have a lot of time. Okay, so this brings me to kind of my biggest problem with this map. As you can see, there's a shootable button here, and there's a shootable button here. And what this does is it raises up the platform. So over here, I've got it very clearly delineated where these shootables toggle the plat. That's not how this one works. This one has a delay and it comes back down. And me, Mr. Smarty Pants, I'm thinking, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a secret to where if they're coming up the elevator and they see that and they'll shoot it, that'll reveal a super nail gun over there. No one that I saw found this secret. And that's my fault. On this screen, you could see it pretty well, but I think on a lot of people's screens, and this was intentional, I tried to darken it. There's a negative light there so that it didn't stick out too much. But you can obviously see what the problem is. The button is not acting the way a button would act. Even if they saw it, they don't want to shoot it because they don't want to go back down. And that was just me being stupid. So what I could have, how could I have fixed that? Well, the concern about this secret is I didn't want it just a shootable door. Originally, I had it as a shootable, and as I was fighting monsters over here, I noticed, oh, it opened. So I was like, well, I better just make it a switch. Oh, let's make it a shootable. Well, that's too bright. Maybe darken it. And I wasn't even thinking. And to be honest with you, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I didn't have the buttons. They were just ordinary plats originally. So I kind of started off with the right idea, but then once I made these shootable buttons on this plat and the mechanics of toggling it, it messed up my secret. So I should have made this a Funk Illusionary or some other button. In fact, I think what I kind of came to realize is I probably should have put a pressure plate here to open that. And then that would make it a little challenging so that you still couldn't get over there unless this platform was up. So you'd have to time it out, whatever. But yeah, I just made this too oblique. I messed up the visual language of how these buttons work. So I think that was the biggest issue with this map and the biggest regret that I had, that, you want people to find your secrets. You don't want to make them too hard. You want to make them challenging. This gold key ended up working out the way I wanted to. I wanted people to be able to kind of spot it from across the map because it's a button hunt and you're kind of traversing around the map a lot. So you need to kind of remember where the ultimate goal is. So this little divot in the rocks here is intentional, and that ended up working out okay. Another thing I wanted to do, besides cleaning up all these rocks, I wanted more stalactites, and I don't know what you call them when they connect. But again, speed map, it would have been nice to have an arch, rock arch going across here, blocking lines of sight, that kind of thing. I'm still kind of working on this method of creating rocks. I'm not super happy with where I'm at. There's a lot of right angles I wish there were not in this map. In fact, the map that inspired this was Skacky's DM4 Jam map. If you haven't played that, it's a must-play. It's a great map. It's like almost a mini episode. It's pretty epic, but beautifully done. It's vast. It's a giant level, but it's so gorgeous. And I really love how Skacky did the caverns and the caves in it and the rock formations. So that's something to take a look at. And I should probably looked a little closer and tried to do a little better on this. But again, speed map. That's always the excuse, speed map. See these walls here, kind of boring. And I really wished I'd put more ogres, just pockets of ogres, maybe in just smaller, kind of more cramped conditions. Like I could have put one up here to rain down on the player. I have these guys. There's 2 of them on hard. But I could have done more. I could have made it more of a kind of a panic-inducing mechanic, and I just really didn't do that. And then along with that, I would have liked to have had areas back in the rock formation that seemed like the level went on farther, just things that are decorative. Maybe there's a monster up there, maybe it's a secret, that kind of thing. To give this a larger feel, even though this is just one play space. So I wish I had taken the time to do that. I definitely do that in my other maps. And I learned that from Level Lord, Richard Gray. He did most of the levels, or a lot of the levels for Duke Nukem 3D, and also Mission Pack and other Quake Engine games later. So he always likes to have areas that the player can't reach that are decorative. And I'm probably going to do a video on that because it's I love doing it. It's one of my favorite things about mapping. Another thing I'm happy with is I took the time to add some path corners for these monsters to follow in the editor. And so these guys are patrolling, and this was definitely one of those things where I wanted them hidden. I didn't want them to aggro or get too crazy until the player was directly beneath them. And I could have just parked them there. If you have time to do this stuff, you should kind of do it. And this is one of the early things I did. Same with that Hell Knight. He's walking back and forth. And it's just, it's kind of good. It gives a little more atmosphere, especially because he wasn't aggroing. He's too far away to aggro. So you didn't want him just standing there. Another thing is, too, I thought earlier I was watching a playthrough. I could have had Trigger Monster jump and had some ogres and other monsters from this platform kind of flying down, flinging themselves down on the player. I wish I had tried that because that would have been a fun addition to the map. A couple players were hoping that there were some items kind of hidden around in these darker areas, and I definitely could have taken advantage of that. The more areas the player can reach, I think it's more fun. This is definitely, I intended this map to have a little bit of exploration. Obviously, it's a button hunt, so you're going to be exploring, looking for the button. So I could have done a little bit more of it. This area was kind of obvious, so I flattened it out and put a light here and put the armor. But I did park some items down in the water, some monsters. I did do that to help a little bit with exploration and help with the health. I normally make health in water rotten, and I think it's correct. I don't know if it's wrong to not do it, but if a health pack's been in there underwater, it might get a little nasty. So another thing I did right, according to JCR and a couple other players, I think, is these teleporters. I had intended on having these from the start. It's for a couple of reasons. First of all, you don't want the player to have to jump in the water, swim back, go up, a bunch of stairs and everything. You want them to be able to traverse the level, but you want it to make sense and not be confusing. And I don't have one over here, but my reasoning was they can ride the elevator up here and take this guy back. This one up here takes you to the gold key, and that's intentional. I wanted there to be a fight for you in order to get over there. And as I said in the video, I realized after some playtesting that it was kind of giving the player a choice, like, oh, should I go here? Where's that going to take me? So I made it very clear with the decal there. So this takes you right to the gold key. Now, JCR had said that, I should be able to fit through those bars. That's not good. But again, you want to see it from across the map, and so I didn't want to obscure it too much. In fact, I should have put the key here. I did use clip here, and as a funk wall, so I didn't want the player going in there. You have to kind of make the brushes around it. I went ahead and did that because I didn't want players to cheese it and get it too soon. I noticed that when Ziggy played this, he was trying to do some trick jumps and get over here and everything. And I should have kind of taken that into account. A lot of times I don't take that into account, where people are trying to break the map or what have you. I see it as kind of like, how dare they? But also it's kind of would have been a reward to have some ammo over here, what have you. You can always use clip to keep people out of your maps. In fact, there is some clip back there. Yeah, I kind of blocked this off, and this was a last minute addition. I wish I had used a little bit more care and made this a little more interesting to look at from a distance. I could have had this trim protruding over the edge and maybe angled the bottom of it or what have you, just to make it prettier, but I didn't. Some other regrets, I wish I had had more of these demon heads sprinkled throughout. I didn't want to do them protruding. I wanted to cut them in. I gotta say, I don't know, for the amount of time I did on this map, I am happy with the lighting, and I am happy overall with the look of it, and it feels like it's on theme, so, can't beat myself up too much. That's it for this episode. Thanks for hanging in there. We'll see you in the next video.